Hello, I'm Rich Swiger. We've all heard that it takes a community to raise a child. Work also knows that it takes that same community working together to aid the wildlife whose habitat suffers from human encroachment. Sometimes the community has no self-awareness until it is brought together by the needs of the creatures who live so precariously around it. On August 2nd, community members came together for the first time and discovered they not only had a common interest as neighbors, but shared a love and concern for the wildlife around them. It's Saturday morning, you have coffee in hand, you head out to the backyard to relax on the patio, when suddenly you're confronted with a 20-pound hook-beak taloned bird with a 7-foot wingspan. What do? Well, that's exactly what happened to Morgan Hill residents John and Jean Conrad. Here's John with his account of the events of that Saturday morning.
Well, it was a Saturday morning, it was the backyard, I heard this noise, I went out around and there was this bird and it was trying to fly out and it would fly and hit our wooden fence and it did like 4 or 5 times. And I'm kind of going, there's a problem here, and I'm looking at this bird saying, that's an eagle. Wait a minute, I mean, I know enough about that's all big, I mean, wingspan, the whole thing. So we must have called 10 or 12 different agencies trying to get some help, but everybody's closed on Saturday, or so we finally kept calling, and meanwhile I'm out in the back kind of tracking the bird, because it was able to walk and fly maybe 2 feet off the deck for about 15, 20 feet at a time. And finally got through, and they said, I said, we've got an eagle. And they go, yeah, an eagle. And because most people are used to like turkey vultures or whatever. And she said, can you describe it? I said, well, it's got feathers all the way down to its feet. It's got talons the size of my hand. And it's got, a bird of prey beak and the whole thing. And she goes, it has feathers all the way down to its feet? And I said, yes, it does. She goes, wow.
Poor Shannon.
So it was really funny. So anyway, she said, well, we'll send somebody out, and they said probably in about, take about 30, 45 minutes. So I took the blanket, walked up to it, and threw it over the top of it. And then from there, it just kind of did nothing. So then I put my hands down, and then it felt trapped, and it started moving around. And I, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? So I put my hands, my knees were on the blanket. I put my hands at what I thought was the shoulders, and it was, and I could feel the wings collapse, which was cool.
Yeah.
And then so I brought it down a little bit more. I could feel the breastplate, and so then I just kind of picked it up. And the moment I did that, the talons came up from underneath and got a hold of the blanket and went, and I kind of went, holy, I'm glad I didn't have this pointed the other way.
That's pretty good, yeah.
We have a big doghouse, and we set it in the doghouse and put a grating over the front of it. It was like a barbecue grate, so it had plenty of air getting in. And it just gave up. It just laid on its back and looked at us and said, I don't want to fight anymore, So we called one more time because nobody was still there, and we were getting worried. And we explained that the bird was now on its back, and someone here said, well, get it off its back if you can. Sue, yeah. She said, get it off its back if you can. So anyway, I got some small leather gloves, but the bird was very docile, and I just kind of flipped it over and pulled out the blanket, put the grating back, and the moment I did that, it popped up, and it was rather alert, but still kind of. And the team showed up, and they said, yep, that's an eagle. And by that time, Jean had gotten on the internet and found that it was a golden eagle. We identified it threw it in the back of our burb, followed him down to the vet, unloaded at the vet.
1 week later, just a few hundred yards up the road from John and Jean's, another eagle in trouble is stranded on the ground in Jesse Swiger's yard. Jane Singleton was the courageous rescuer, herding the bird into this alcove and finally to safety with a trip to the Wildlife Rescue Center.
Visit me, and he said, Mother, what's that big bird doing in the yard?
In front of your
And I said, is it still out there? So then we went out and saw it. We determined then it was sick or something was wrong with it.
Did you touch it? How close did you get?
I did get very close. We called him and they came and took care of it.
Both eagles were brought to the Wildlife Education and Rehabilitation Center in Morgan Hill, California. Here volunteers, veterinarians, and technicians work around the clock to save the lives of these birds and prepare them for release back into the wild. Both birds had lost the ability for flight, and one suffered temporary blindness, a real concern for the staff here. An exact cause for their plight has not been determined as yet, but the good news is they have recovered and are ready to be released. Veterinarian John Quick offered assistance to Brian Latta, field biologist for Santa Cruz Predatory Bird Research Group. Both birds were measured, weighed, banded, and fitted with radio transmitting devices.
These are 65-gram transmitters made in England by a company called BioTrack. They run off of 2 AA lithium batteries that last from 5 to 7 years, and they're on continuously. They have a mortality switch, which basically if the transmitter sits still for 8 hours, the pulse rate doubles. So when Granger is up in the airplane tracking, if he gets a double beep as opposed to the standard beep, then he knows that the transmitter's down and he can send somebody in to find it.
The research group's intent is to track the birds and use the data for a current research project. Knowledge is a powerful tool, and that knowledge gained from the release of this pair may help other birds in the future. The Santa Cruz Research Project has been monitoring the activities of more than 200 radio-tagged eagles. This study, one of the first and largest of its kind, has uncovered fascinating details of the demography and natural history of golden eagles. Weekly plane surveys detect fatalities, each of which is recovered and the cause of death determined.
Instead of the door, they're taking the top off.
I'm gonna save the battery.
Oh,
Yeah, go.
Where'd he go? There he is. Okay, I didn't get anyone.
Thanks to caring community members and the dedicated staff at work, 2 golden eagles take flight, gracing the skies over Morgan Hill. Look up and you'll see them. Watch them for a while, and let your heart be lifted as they dance with the wind.